because we are in a public crisis. This is obviously not Maria's opinion. This is expert opinion. We can look at the disengagement that we're seeing in organizations today. We're looking at about 80% of employees being disengaged at work, costing organization around the world about $8.8 trillion in lost productivity per year.
Welcome back to the Empowering Women podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Bumgarner. On behalf of Empowering Women in Industry and Charlie Matthews, thank you so very much for listening to our podcast and for connecting, educating, and empowering women. We all rise together. Today's episode, it is an extra special one because we are celebrating Women's Equality Day. And when we think about equality in leadership, most of us know deep down that the way we've always done it, well, it just isn't cutting it anymore. The world is facing what our guest today calls a polycrisis. Yes, it's as big as it sounds. And the old leadership playbook? Well, it's about as useful as a flip phone at a TikTok convention. That's where Maria Brinck comes in. Maria is the founder of Zynergy International. She's an international advisor and the author of the book, The Leadership We Need, a new mindset for a brighter future. She's traveled the world from Sweden to the Congo Basin, to the boardrooms of global companies, and now she has a front row seat to what's working and what's very much not working. In this episode, Maria is here to challenge us, inspire us, and maybe even shake us up a little bit. She'll share why today's leaders shouldn't automatically be tomorrow's, how diversity of thought is the secret ingredient to solving our toughest problems, and why redefining success beyond GDP, it just might save us all. So grab your coffee, tea, your water, and your courage, because this conversation is about to ignite some serious sparks. Let's dive into the leadership we need with Maria Brinck. Let's get into it. Get ready to challenge your leadership ideas. I will see you on the other side. Everyone, and welcome to the Empowering Women podcast, where we spotlight women's voices, ideas, and leaders who are shaping a brighter future. And today, one of my favorite days of the year, is Women's Equality Day. We are bringing you a powerhouse of vision and courage. Maria Brinck is a global leadership advisor, founder of Zynergy International, and the author of the upcoming book, The Leadership We Need. She's lived everywhere from Sweden to the Congo Basin, and she's coached top executives, and now she is on a mission to completely reimagine what leadership looks like, moving from command and control to connect and adapt. So get ready. We're going to talk about polycrisis, diversity of thought, and why GDP is not the ultimate measure of success. And maybe we'll cover chimps and bias, and we'll try to solve all the world's problems before lunch today. So let's jump in and welcome Maria to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I am so delighted to be here with you today. I couldn't think of anything more important. And
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having
Totally
me.
agree. So I love to start with stories. That's my favorite place to start. As I alluded to in the introduction, you've lived in Sweden, the Congo Basin, and you're a company founder, which always intrigues me. What were some pivotal moments that led you to write the leadership book, or the book, The Leadership We Need? What are some moments that stick out to you?
Yeah, it actually was, I wish I could say it was some big moment, but it was actually a small little dispute that happened in my own family. It was very unfortunate and very personable. And it was just where I saw the true dominance of masculinity taking over at the expense of the more feminine, relationships and keeping the family together. But it was a dispute about an inheritance and estate that was supposed to be shared between my mother and her brother, and it didn't happen that way. And it just hit me at home. I've seen that masculinity and the dominance over the feminine in society and in my working with leaders and organization, corporate America. We all know it. But when it happened in my own family, it just triggered me. And that was the final straw to write this book. But it was also, I was already in leadership as a leadership advisor and consultant. And I also had the opportunity to have worked in corporate America for 8 years in sales, which as you know, very masculine competitiveness.
My day job supports sales, and it is definitely more of an aggressive environment. That's what I'll call it.
Yes, indeed. And especially when you're selling technology like entire enterprise solutions or pharmaceuticals or biotechnology. I think it's even amplified. But I also had the great opportunity to live and work in Cameroon, working alongside indigenous population and working in the Congo basin rainforest with the rehabilitation of chimpanzees and gorillas, and also the type of leadership I saw that. And I thought, wow, if we can bring this back to United States, to Europe, and to the Western world, what incredible potential there is for humanity if we get this right and actually bring in that diversity of thought where a full representation of humanity actually for the first time leads humanity, not the small subset of humanity that we've seen so far, not just the masculinity, but also a very small subset of men, not even the average male,
right?
But small subset. So that's the two triggers and the two moments that really shaped this book.
I hate to hear that about inheritance. I think sometimes that brings out the worst in all humans. Those kind of situations, but it can be very enlightening as to power dynamics and leadership.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what played out. The worst case.
But we hope for different in the future, right? And that's what you're leading the way on.
Yes, the future will be bright.
That's right. So you describe our current era as polycrisis. I think that's a big word, probably for a big moment. So let's just start with the basics. What exactly is polycrisis?
Yeah, it is a big word, and but it's something that we should all pay attention to because we are in a polycrisis. This is obviously not Maria's opinion. This is expert opinion. We can look at the disengagement that we're seeing in organizations today. We're looking at about 80% of employees being disengaged at work, costing organization around the world about $8.8 trillion in lost productivity per year. That's one.
It kind of makes you takes your breath away, right?
Exactly. It's like, oh, barely swallow. And then the second thing I would like to bring up is, we have lost 70% of our biodiversity since 1970. And we are a part of that biodiversity, but currently we're being led as we are separated from that biodiversity. That is another huge crisis. Again, I repeat that 70% lost biodiversity since 1970. So you can see how our planetary as well as human trajectory is not very good. We can also look at climate change, the pollution of our land, water, and of course our air. We can look at the decline in our mental health. Anxiety, depression, burnout is skyrocketing. Why is that? America right now, our longevity is decreasing. We're actually going down as far as aging and dying. And I can go on and on. Then we have unregulated AI. We can talk about that. We have unregulated biotechnology. And to summarize it, Shannon, I think the biggest threat is that our intelligence and power are over and expanding quicker than our true human wisdom. And that's scary because that is
That
not
is scary. Yeah, our human brains can't keep up with it all. I think is what you're really saying,
exactly.
right?
Because
Yeah.
the pace and the speed is speeding up as well. So we really need to get back on track and bring out the human condition and the human wisdom behind it all, or we're not going to do well.
Yeah, I know you're trying to switch the way we lead, or the leadership paradigm, I'll call it. How do you think outdated leadership is contributing to this poly crisis?
Well, the irony is that our current leader, or traditional leadership, and frankly, current leadership, are actually not, they don't have a plan to solve this. They are reflecting the problem or creating a problems that doesn't exist. For example, what we hear about in the media, and not just in the United States, but also in Europe, but very much so here in the United States, is, you know, the fear-based, the scare tactic of fighting barbarians at the gate, right? Always fighting barbarians at the gate, which also translates to immigrants. We hear it all the time here in America, as that's the problem. We hear it in all over Europe currently. And frankly, I'm not saying it's not a problem, but I'm saying we have much bigger problems than that. And frankly, we don't have the leadership capability and the leadership skills in place right now in our leaders to take on what's really literally killing us. And that's a big problem. This barbarians at the gate mentality is just for them to get elected, frankly, and to rise, because when people get scared, they think it's an easy problem to fix, they go for the strong men. But look where that's gotten us. We have 10,000 years of strong men. It's been monopolized by men and a very specific type of male. And we're not, maybe, 10,000 years ago, granted, we probably were fighting barbarians at the gate. We were.
Yeah, or a wild animal or something of the sort.
Exactly, something of that magnitude. But today, frankly, we need leaders that are mentally capable and skilled to deal and come up with solutions to the problems that we have. And they are complex. They're not black and white as they're trying to make it. And so let's not create smaller problems and think that's the biggest fear right now. We have much bigger problems than that. And we frankly don't have the leadership. There is a total lack of leadership. There's no plan to fix our current trajectory.
Yeah, fear is a very visceral thing for any leader, be it in a government or an industry, a plant, doesn't matter, to really tap into. It's a very visceral feeling for every human.
And it triggers that primitive, when you go for a strong man, everything's.
Well, I think it triggers fight, flight, or freeze, right?
Exactly.
One of the three.
Most of us go small. We don't go big. We don't go for collaboration. We're all in this together. We go small, competition, my tribe, us versus them. And it's not where we need to go right now. We're all in this together. And truly, we are global citizens because our problems are global. And we need
we're all connected. Yeah, very true. Probably more so than ever before. And I feel like that change, we can say that every day versus the prior day.
Exactly right.
You talk a lot about diversity of thought, and something I've heard, but I'm curious what your definition is of diversity of thought and why you think it's important, like why now?
Yeah, diversity of thought has never been more important than now. Especially when we think about that our intelligence are now, kind of dominating our wisdom, and we need to get that back in balance. Diversity of thought we actually have never had in leadership. If you think about it, it's fascinating and mind-boggling that since human civilization about 10,000 years ago, give or take, its leadership has truly been monopolized, not just by men and a small subset of men, but very, very specific characteristics. And granted or not granted that we needed that. I can't speak to that. It's not my specialty, but I can tell you in today's world, meeting the moment we're at, they are falling short, and very much so. So what we need is an inclusive leadership where the rest of humanity, maybe the more timid, humble men, as well as women, half of humanity is not even being included in leadership, as well as minorities, and maybe most importantly, considering, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, with 70% of our biodiversity killed off since 1970, we need the indigenous wisdom in leadership if we are to have a bright future. And the indigenous population that I had the honor to work with and see, I observed, I wasn't there to observe them or to study them, but I observed from the outside. They sit, if you look at the indigenous population across the globe, they sit on 80% of our biodiversity, but only make up 5% of our human population. But we need them more than ever. So it needs to be that inclusive type of leadership where we have a full representation of humanity actually leading humanity going forward.
Yeah, because you get more of a full perspective. I will have to say, as a leader, even for me, it's more uncomfortable often to sit in those spaces because you hear perspectives and opinions that, quite frankly, might just make you uncomfortable. It's just very counter to yours, maybe, or you start having a more confrontational dialogue, and I mean that in a positive way.
Yes.
But you always, what I found, I can't think of a time where we didn't get to a better place in the end. Despite the discomfort.
That's exactly it. That's where we grow. That is why we grow, and they're always growing pains. But we need that diversity, and that means that we need to reach out to people that are very different from ourselves, and we need all their perspectives. Because
I think we don't often do that because we naturally gravitate to people that are like us. Either gender or skin color, or it could be socioeconomic background. It could be, oh, I'm from the southeastern U.S., so this person's from the southeastern U.S., and you have that commonality. And I think we don't always look for broader versions of commonality.
Exactly. You're so spot on, because when we're in fear and I think most of us do feel we are in a crisis. We have that intuition, but then we go small and we go with what's comfortable, and we go to like people that look and think just like us. It's ironic when we actually need to do the exact opposite in this moment in time. And I tell you what, Shannon, the greatest leaders that I ever worked with, the most courageous leaders, are the ones that have the courage to reach out to the other side. Yeah.
And understand their own bias. That's
exactly their own blind spots.
They understand, they start to understand their own biases, and they start to recognize it in themselves.
Exactly. And it's hard work.
It is very hard work.
Very hard work. It's so hard. Yeah. That's why most leaders don't do it. But they're also not, in my opinion, courageous enough. Because, relationships is the hardest thing we have in our lives. You know how hard it is to keep relationships going. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it is exhausting, but so worthwhile, but exhausting. Yeah.
So worthwhile. It's the only way forward. The only way forward, whether it's a leader of an organization or leaders of nations.
Yeah. Well, speaking of leaders, you write, your book says, if I'm correct, the leaders of today should not be the leaders of tomorrow. So what do you think is the biggest barrier preventing women, and probably especially those, I think I have a more collaborative feminine style. So what do you think would stop people like me, like stepping into more leadership roles?
Yeah, I think the greatest thing we can do as women, and as any leader, man or woman, is self-awareness. We need to have a better understanding of what our skills are, our skill set as a leader, and have that balance between the masculine and the feminine, because we can all be masculine, we can all be feminine. It doesn't necessarily has to do with if we're a man or a woman, but and bring that to the forefront. And as women, we often because the environment, we actually often have to become a little bit more masculine, maybe even more so than we want or feel comfortable with. But we need to go to that masculine to even get in. because that's just the reality. You know,
Yeah, it's the system, and I'm a
exactly.
firm believer that you can only change the system from within.
Yes, yes. So you get in and then you bring out the true feminine and who you are, and that goes for men and women as well, but particularly for women. And it's this whole thing where women have for so long, and since I'm in leadership coaching and I've been coaching a lot of women, where the advice is be more like a man. Well, long term, that's going to lead to burnout, not having
Oh,
a
I tried that path, Maria. It did not work
yeah,
very well.
yeah, right, exactly. We have all been there, right? And you're like, be more like your man. But I tell you what, for the interview and to get into leadership, that still is the environment. So if that's where you want to be and we need you, put those skills on and you have them. And as soon as you get inside the door, I would say bring out your full spectrum, because that is what we need when we have that beautiful balance between the two. But the situation is what it is and the environment is what it is currently. And you and I are not going to change that overnight. And so, but the key is to get in, and then we'll
But I
bring
think
it.
you bring up a very good point. I think it takes courage to start to, I'll call it, open up once maybe you're in a role, and to really show your more
Mhm.
diverse self. I think it takes a lot of courage, because I know for me early on, I didn't have the confidence. So I went in with what I thought was expected of me.
Yeah.
And now I'm a little bit more mature, let's call it,
Yeah.
in years. And
Yeah.
so I'm more saying, no, that's not who I am. This is my leadership style. And I understand maybe if it doesn't work in this situation, then maybe I need to be in a different role, but I'm not going to change my leadership style.
Right. Well, the more we see of your leadership style as a woman, the more you're willing to bring out when you're inside the door or at the table, the
So true.
more we're slowly changing that leadership environment. And that is what needs to happen. You can't lead with it getting in there or getting to the table, but once you're there, start bringing it in. And the more people see it, the more people gonna see, wow, that's acceptable. It's kind of,
Yeah.
I often compare it, and I give you an example, is you go to a high stake interview for your next career move. You're not going to come as you are at home being yourself, or jeans and a t-shirt. You're going to come looking the best you can, right, for that
Right.
role. It's the same thing. Once you're in and get that job and nail that interview, hey, maybe you can start having a jeans and t-shirt days at that office. Who knows, or at the
Right.
leadership retreat. Hey, let's make it casual, you see where I'm going. It's kind of
Yep,
the
I do.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's also situational, to your point. I think that's
yeah,
something you're wisely pointing out. Like if you're in a boardroom meeting versus a team meeting, you might have to adjust your style. I think that's normal.
exactly. Exactly.
Yep. Well, you started off with the statistics, but I think it's worth sharing it again. The masculine monoculture leadership, and again, that masculine can be either females or males,
Mhm.
but it's costing $8.8 trillion in workplace disengagement. And for my listeners, I think you need to write that number down.
All
But
right.
what are 3 ways you think we can get back on track out of that leadership culture?
Yeah. Um, the one thing we need in organizations is the engagement. We need people to feel engaged, because that's when we also know that people can feel that well-being that we all want to feel, right? And we have balance in our lives, and we have meaning. So with that, one of the things that I do, and I do a lot of this for organizations, is really looking into strengths. What are the unique strengths of individuals? I use Strengths Finder as one of the tools.
Mm,
We
love
need.
that one.
I know. I would. Maybe after the call, I can get your top five. I'm always curious.
Well, it's
The
been a
ones
while,
I've
but I'll
already.
tell you, I will follow up after the interview. I do have it on my
Yes.
computer.
And I'm always thinking, what could be that person's top five when I'm speaking to them? So now you really got me curious. But also I look at values. I use Barrett value assessment, which I really like a lot. It's very simple, but it's so important to get those, know your unique strengths, both of yourself individually and the team, values. And also I use a tool that actually I created, with Zynergy International Q12, which is create your purpose. And you can create your purpose individually or as a team, but we really need those more of the non-linear, as I call them, non-linear qualities and energy into organizations to really start making people feel more engaged and a sense of well-being, which the tools like that will bring. And so I think we need that more than ever. And it's interesting too to think, with AI is starting to get into organizations, that's a very linear skill set that AI has. And the competitive advantage now for businesses is really going to be the nonlinear.
You could have not said it better. I think people think, oh, the human element's getting taken out. And I actually think it's the opposite.
It's the absolute opposite. Exactly. The human condition is going to be what differentiates you. And that's where your unique strengths as an organization, knowing your values and your purpose is going to become more important than ever, because you're not going to have a competitive advantage with AI because it's available, open source, available to everybody, and it's linear. So let's face it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think one way you're saying to get out of it is looking at your strengths, knowing your values, and then being really clear about your purpose, and then bringing all of those into your leadership style, how you show up. Is that fair to say?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome. That's so true. And you know what? That sounds so easy, but it isn't.
No, this is some of the absolute hardest work you can do, because you really have to look yourself in the mirror, and that is uncomfortable for all of us. And bringing that self-awareness and digging deep, and also bring out reflection questions. Like one reflection question that I like to use that is also in my book, and all these tools, by the way, is in my book, The Leadership We Need.
Yeah.
A new mindset for a brighter future. But one of the questions that I really like that is a reflection question in my book that might also help the listeners is the question of what feminine and masculine leadership skills do I lead with? And are they harmonious, and are they effective? And really think about it and reflect on that. I think that can really make you hone in on what you need to practice in your everyday to become an even better leader as well.
Yeah, I think for me too is understanding. I know like when things are stressful or maybe I'm just tired, I go back to leadership behaviors that I'm not particularly proud of. So for example, like not asking for opinions, just saying this is what we're going to do and we're doing it, right? Right. In terms of crisis, and sometimes that's not really bad. Like if the crisis is, immediate and we have to take action like this minute, but I think it alienates people. So I think people almost have their I'm gonna call it their normal everyday selves, and then when the pressure's really on, they might go back to some behaviors they know aren't the best.
Shannon, that is so ironic because it almost sounds to me that you have command number one.
Probably.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a little secret. So do I. It's funny, we're talking about moving away from command and control to connect and adapt. Here's somebody who's been working really hard herself on her own leadership skills, and I have command number one. So I know exactly when it's a crisis, I step in, I take over, and I tell everybody what they need to do.
Yep. You're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and this is how we're going to solve this problem.
Exactly. So when I talk about, we need to get to connect and adapt, trust me, I'm working on this every single day of my life. And I know firsthand how to show up masculine because I've been leaning on those skills myself my entire life, realizing that that's actually not what we need, including myself. I really need to work on all the things that I just mentioned. So
I love it. That's so funny. Now I'm really going to look this up. Maybe I'll even put it in the show notes for all the listeners. I'll put what my strength finder is in the show notes, because if somebody's listening, they're probably wondering now.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I think one of the fantastic lines from your book is this: GDP is not a prerequisite for happiness, nor does it guarantee it. So on Women's Equality Day, how do you think women leaders can help redefine what we value in work and life, and what success truly means?
Yeah. Could you repeat that question? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, absolutely. So I think you talk a lot in your book about GDP is not a prerequisite for happiness, nor does it guarantee it. So I think for me, it's like, to me, it starts linking to value system.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us will go into a room and say, oh, I'm the VP of this, or I'm this, or, we get wrapped up in kind of different definitions of success. So
Yeah.
I'm curious how you think women leaders can help redefine what we value in work and life.
Yeah, absolutely. GDP kind of goes with those quarterly earnings that organizations are so obsessed with. And
Yep, I know. I work in corporate America. Yep.
yeah, so that is your other job. I was curious what that might be. All right. Now that explains a lot. You obviously have the experience and you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, and that is a very short-term mindset, and we can no longer stay in that mindset. It also leads to the burnout and the disengagement that we touched on earlier.
Yep.
But we also, even if you look at nations and how nations are being led, and that there are nations now that are looking beyond the GDP. So
Mm,
this would be obviously organizations looking to go beyond their quarterly earning. And that you have nations that look to other indexes of progress, like we have the social progress index is one of them, which
mm,
really hones in on the well-being of the population, whether
mm,
it's in education or access to medical assistant facilities or the environment or gender equality, et cetera, et
mm.
cetera. And then, of course, there's the happiness index, which I'm sure a lot of listeners are familiar.
Yeah.
So, and there are countries that are really scoring high on those. Unfortunately, America, United States is not one of them. I think last time I checked, don't quote me, but America was the last in the developed countries, sitting at, I believe, 24.
On
Uh,
the social progress one?
I think it might have been the happiness one.
Happiness one.
Oh, no,
Okay.
maybe just social progress. I can't remember, but it's
Okay.
definitely not in the top 3 or 5, that I can tell you. And
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're the happiest of nations. I don't know what the data says, but probably
yes,
not.
no. And I think that speaks volume, and to the fact
Mm,
that GDP a question I have in my book that I like for the readers of the book to reflect on is, how is your next purchase or consumption going to bring well-being into your life? You know,
mm,
and ask that question and really think through, will it or will it not? Because a lot of our purchases truly do not. They drain us. And we buy things with money we don't have to satisfy and influence people around us that we don't even like and don't care about, however that saying goes. But it's strange. Why are we doing this? And we're just making things worse. So yeah, so GDP is, and the quarterly earnings is not what we need to pay attention to. We really need to pay attention to long-term wealth building of an organization and checking with how are the people doing, what's the
mm,
well-being of your employees. And that's where those values and purpose and strengths comes handy, because you
mm.
can really get a good check-in. Yeah.
Are you seeing maybe in your life or in maybe those you coach how women are starting to shift that paradigm either in their own lives or in their organizations?
Yeah, I do think that women can feel that what they see in organizations, maybe they pick up on it a little bit easier than men just
Right.
general here, but that they have more of that emotional or desire maybe for a broader well-being of the team or of the organization as a whole, and therefore they are a little bit more sensitive to it, and therefore they see it more clearly. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah,
And
I
I
also
think that's
see
a
it.
strength.
I have someone in my broader organization that while he is very driven to succeed in his career, he also I would say his top priority is his family. So I think he's struggling with a little bit of that because he has, a coworker who's a little bit more career driven. So it's interesting, even within males within the same organization, you're seeing like different value sets, I'll call it. And you see him making very deliberate decisions that are more around his, I'm gonna call it well-being and his family's well-being value set.
And you know what's interesting, what you just mentioned, Shannon, is that there we can see a man having a much wider set of leadership skills, where he's trying to, he has the drive. He might even be all into quarterly earnings. What do we know? And maybe he feel like that's the way he needs to manage his business right now. But he also brings in the wider, the well-being, the family, the relationships he has with, hopefully with his wife and children, et cetera, et cetera. So that is kind of what we need. We need both,
Yep.
We need that. There's not one that is better than the other. It just needs to be a healthy balance. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I will say that based on some other, I'm gonna call it environmental factors, he's struggling with that part of himself. And I think as part of a leader, I've encouraged him to continue to that broadening, like whatever fits for him. It's like, just because this person is a different way doesn't mean, like, I actually agree with you. His value set's much broader. And I think it bodes well for him longer term.
Absolutely. And I think it also prevents, burnout and things like
true.
that. Yeah. So
I wish somebody would have told me this 10 or 15 years ago, honestly, Maria.
I know, right? Tell me about it.
Yeah, I totally do.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this earlier, and I have made this mistake so many times. You say it's not about women leading like a man, which I've tried. And for any woman out there that's trying it, don't, because it doesn't work. Call me and I'll kind of help you work around it, or even better, call Maria, because she's a professional coach. But it's about integrating more feminine values. And again, this can apply to women and men. It's not a woman exclusive conversation. Some of those can be exclusion, compassion, and sustainability into how we lead. So those are some examples of feminine that I pulled out of your book. What do you think? There's one practical way. So if I'm a leader and I struggling with that, what's one practical way I can start today? And I'd love to see it more from a female version in a more male populated industry, because that's many of our listeners are in that situation.
Yeah, actually, in my book, I do have a full list of what's considered by definition being masculine leadership.
Oh, good. Fantastic.
So it's even like, and of course, we're all a mix of both. But I would like to kind of go back to the question, because I think it's such an important question, and that is the question of, which masculine and feminine leadership skills do I lead with? And are they harmonious and effective? Because I think the one thing we also forget as women is that we are looked at in a different way than men in leadership. So I'm
laughing because amen, but keep going.
Yeah, exactly. I think you know where I'm going with that. So when we go masculine trying to get in the door, if we go too masculine, and I've seen, and one of my worst manager ever was a woman, and she went over the top, overcompensated the masculinity, and it was extremely difficult for the team and for me. So we all know those women, and often they're also even the ones that they don't even have to go that far, but they can be labeled, and I think we all know what that word is. So
well, they get penalized for it, because for women, I think there's more of what I call a likability factor that's more important than for many male leaders I've seen.
Exactly. And then we're also dealing with a catch-22 where women are caught in this catch-22 where, if she's too feminine, she's too sensitive, and she's not cut out for leadership. But if she's too masculine, then, she's not assertive, she's aggressive, because now so we have that to deal with. And that is.
I'm laughing because I've seen it so many times. Keep going.
Yeah. So I think it goes back to the question there of having the awareness of knowing your full skill set, the masculine and the feminine, and know how to meet people where they're at in the situation you're at. And as a woman, I think we have an advantage that we're actually more sensitive and have we do more self-reflection, and we actually do have more self-awareness in general. And we can actually meet people more easily where they're at. So we can turn on that masculinity when needed, but we can also turn it down when needed and bring out the feminine. And that is kind of our secret powerhouse, in my opinion.
Mm. Oh, that is so true. Like knowing when to dial it up and dial it down, essentially. And it's constant, right? It depends on, to your point, who's in the room, what's the discussion about.
Exactly. But the
Yeah.
old advice to be more like a man, absolutely outdated, often end up backfiring, and we get labeled, and we also burn ourselves out because it's not sustainable. So
Yeah. And I would also say for the male allies out there listening, this Maria's great advice applies to you as well, right? Knowing when to
yeah,
maybe dial up the masculine and dial it down. Know when to dial up, like empathy, for example. If you have an employee who's struggling, like how do you dial up the empathy piece of it in that conversation?
exactly. And I think too, that's such an important message, because I think too, as we are looking to the need, our desperate need to actually evolve the leadership culture to be more balanced, a healthy balance between the masculine and feminine, we need men to dial into the feminine more than ever, to also create that environment and make that acceptable for everybody, and
Yeah.
kind of the environment going forward.
Yeah, because I think in all fairness, I think men sometimes get penalized for being more empathetic. I've seen that.
Exactly. Exactly. And that goes to what I said in the beginning of the podcast. For so long, we have been led by a small, small, small subset of men. They're not even a representation of men.
Right. Yeah.
Other men are suffering because of it too. And they might be much more capable and skilled to be leaders, but they've been in the shadows because what we have preferenced in our leader, let's face it, assertive, charismatic, even tall. That's what we
Yeah. Hi, I know people think it's crazy because I'm short. You can't tell on this, but I'm only 5'2". But yeah.
Yeah. See? And there's nothing more that, like, a tall person does not have more capabilities, neither more qualified to lead than any one of us. But that's what where we're stuck.
Yeah.
We need to
So true.
evolve. Yeah, it's sad. And look where we're at.
We have a lot of opportunity, right? A lot of
Yeah.
opportunity for growth. That's right.
Yes, we sure do. And it's going to be good once we get this back, like we get it on track for the first time in history, actually. Not back on track. It's like, no, we just need to
On a new
evolve.
track.
Yeah, a new track. Exactly.
There we go. Well, there's one final question for you today. When we release this, will be Women's Equality Day.
Fantastic.
If there's one shift in mindset you'd love every listener, but especially our women listeners, to take with them after this episode, what would it be?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, there's so many to
You
think
pick a
about.
couple. I said
Yeah,
one, but if
yeah.
you want to pick more than one, you can.
Yeah, I think what we need to understand is the mindset and the thinking that got us to where we're at today.
Mm.
With these problems we're having, we cannot have the same mindset and thinking solving these problems. This is kind of Einstein's quote, right? You can't solve the problems with the thinking that created them.
Mm.
So why are we? Why are we constantly circling back to the same type of leadership? We need a new set of leadership. We need a new mindset. We have not even scratched the surface of what humanity can do, because we never had a full set of humanity actually leading humanity. And we need that more than ever. And we women need to stand up and get into leadership positions to change our trajectory. And we need to meet this moment. We can no longer be at the sidelines. And that is so important, because we hear this saying like, oh, we have always had wars and that's just human nature. It's actually not true. We are capable of profound love as much as we are aggressive and can kill. But nobody
Yep.
talks about love and a profound love, because that's not in leadership as today. But we are. So if we get that representation of women into leadership, we're going to start seeing a balance. I leave you with a scary statistic, and that is And then a positive, as we going to end on a positive note, right? But humans are 6 times more aggressive, likely to kill than the average mammal. Men
Oh,
are
wow. That is
I
scary.
know, that's scary. And get this, men are 9 times more aggressive than women. So when we have this saying, humans have always been this way and always been, well, we've only had men and a small subset of men leading humanity. And that's what we're looking at. That's actually not truly who we are. We are so much more than that. We are so much better than that. We have profound love. People, being a parent, we know we would die for our children, right? And even complete strangers would die for helping a child who's drowning, et cetera, et cetera. I can go on and on and on about the beautiful stories of how compassionate we are as human, but we don't have that reflected in leadership. I think, Shannon, we can do so much better than this. This world can be so much better. We can live in an environment where it's never going to be perfect. Let's just, but we can live in such a more perfect world where we have much less wars. No one is starving. There we are free of pollutants. And that is truly a world that we can live in. And we just need to bring the greatest of humanity forward and start leading from that. And I think right now we are at that tipping point where we're not seeing it, but we can feel that that's where we need to go.
Yep. Yeah, I love what you said. What got us here is not what's gonna get us forward.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
And women have so much to offer, and men bringing out their feminine. Wow, this can really be a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And we're going to feel that well-being in organizations. We're going to feel meaning in our work. Once we know a purpose or values and align those with the mission of the organization and the vision. So I think good things are going to happen.
Good things are coming because all these people listening are going to start doing their mindset shift, if I can get that out, and leading with both sides of their being, and dialing it up and dialing it down, like you said, Maria, based on whatever situation they're in. So this community has been a bunch of leaders, and I know that it will continue to be. But where can folks find you, Maria, as we wrap up? Where can folks find you, and where can they get your book, most importantly?
Yeah, so The Leadership We Need, a New Mindset for a Brighter Future is actually available online and can be pre-ordered at your favorite bookstore. And you can find me on LinkedIn at Maria Brinck, Brinck, and also my website, Zynergy with a Z, Zynergy International. And I look forward to continue this conversation with all of you. It's so important that we have this conversation.
Well, I know we're recording before, obviously, but happy Women's Equality Day. Sorry, wrong one. Happy Women's Equality Day, Maria. And it was so good to learn more about you. Thank you for doing the work that you do. And thank you for sharing it with our community today.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Shannon, for having me on your show, and all the best to all of you out there, to all the listeners and the readers of my book. We're on this together. Let's change the leadership culture and bring some very forward thinkers type of leaders out there to lead us forward. I can't wait. I think it's going to be great.
It is going to be great.
Ahead. Huh?
Well, it's going to be great.
It really
I promise.
Is.
Fantastic.
The future is bright, Shannon.
The future is bright.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to leave it there.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. I will see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Wow. What a powerful conversation with Maria Brinck on the leadership we need. I don't know about you, but I'm leaving today with my leadership mindset stretched in all the right ways. One line Maria shared that really stuck with me was this: diversity of thought, it isn't just a nice to have. It's the only way to solve the complex problems we face today. And I think that's a call to every one of us to open the door wider, to welcome new perspectives, and to remember that the future will not be led by yesterday's playbook. So here's my challenge to you. In your next meeting, project, or decision, pause and ask, whose voice is missing? And then go find it. Because building the leadership we need starts with everyday choices to include, to listen, and to lead differently. And if you are looking for a variety of different perspectives, look no further. The Empowering Women in Industry community is where you will find them. There are so many fabulous ways to continue to engage with us as we close out 2025. These include our mentoring circles and monthly meetups. You can join these events at any time. We would love to see you. There is no better investment than this investment in yourself. You can also join us as a member, where you will have access to diverse resources, including prior recordings across a wide range of topics. Links for all these great opportunities are in the show notes. And we are on the final countdown to our annual Empowering Women Conference on October 1st and 2nd in Chicago, Illinois. It is now a 2-day affair. And this is an event you do not want to miss, one that will fuel you for the rest of the year. So come join us. Registration is open. Do not let this fabulous opportunity pass you by. If you've loved this conversation, please be sure to share it with a friend, a colleague, or someone who just needs a little extra inspiration today. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us keep these empowering stories coming your way. As we bring this special Women's Equality Day episode to a close, I'll leave you with the words of Eleanor Roosevelt. She once said, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." So let's keep believing, keep building, and most importantly, keep leading in a way that ignites the path for others. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Empowering Women podcast, and continue to ignite your fire within.